back to Country Basket Weaving. I'm Sandy Atkinson. The basket we've chosen today is our Shaker Cathead basket. The material that you're going to need and the cut pattern is as follows. You're going to need 5/8 inch flat. Take this and cut 10 pieces that are 30 inches long. 3/8 inch flat is for our weavers. 5/8 inch flat oval for our rim. You're also going to need 2 dog ears and 1 swing handle. 1/4 inch flat or 5mm caning we'll use for our lashing. We're going to get into our pattern. We've already got it cut. We're going to mark the centers on these pieces on the right side. Remember how we find our end? Draw this up. Put our center pencil line on there. And we're going to need a book to lay this one out. My dictionary up here. We're going to lay out 5 pieces. Remember, the right sides are up. Our center lines are going to be lined up. Let me draw my book down a little bit here. Lay out 5 pieces. Then we're going to take our next 5 pieces and weave them in an over-under pattern. Because we have 5, our first piece is going to weave right through the center of these center marks. Our center line on our horizontal weaver is going to be placed with the center on our vertical weavers. There will be 2 above and 2 below. We'll weave these in quickly. Then we're going to take our 1/2 inch spacer. 1 more to weave in. Over, under, over, under. Take our 1/2 inch spacer and starting from the center, move these down a little bit. We're going to space a 1/2 inch. We can do this quickly here. We can take our book off. Starting in the center, going sideways, we're going to do the same thing, space 1/2 inch. And this is just a scrap piece that I've made into my spacer. Keep it in my toolbox. Every time I purchase a new size of reed, I'm going to take a scrap piece and throw it in, mark it, and throw it in my toolbox. Put 4 clips on your 4 corners, okay? Now we need to go in and get our weaver. Our weavers are out of the 3/8 flat. Finding the right side, we're working on the outside of the basket. We're going to take our scissors and we're going to trim a tail somewhere between 12 to 18 inches long. I'm going to make this a taper. Taper it right off, discard that piece there. I've got a sharp point here. Let's see if I can taper it a little more. Okay. Now I have to start on an underweave in the center, and this one up here is an overweave. So I'm going to move over and I'm going to give this a turn because I want it to be an underweave. I'm going to find my right side, which is right here, and start this underneath that center spoke. I'm going to weave it out. When I come to my corner, I'm going to take off my corner. Now I'm going to put in a crimp, which is just a turn, but I still want the right side of my weaver to stay up. So I really didn't flip it in any way. I just did a little crimp on it. Now this is real important. Come in here and overemphasize, cross these over and overemphasize that cross because we want to build little feet on this basket. Give it a turn. You're going to work over and under. Come to your corner. We're going to do that little crimp. Just going to put in a crimp here, which is like a little bend. Being careful to keep the right side up. Weave it one more time, come back and put that foot on. Really overemphasize it. As you work, keep the palm of your hand pressing down on the middle of your basket, and this will help build those little feet too. Come around the corner. Notice our taper's getting larger. We have to work a little harder to get that little crimp in there. Weave out one more. Come back, overemphasize those little feet. Come around here. Now I'm working on the full size of my weaver. My taper's used up. Put that crimp in, give it a push, weave it under, put it back in. Can you see that little crimp there, how I've done that? My right side of my weaver is still up. Come over here, weave one more time, and put that, overemphasize that little foot there. Good. Okay, if I was to keep on weaving, I would be weaving the very same pattern that I had before. So again, in this basket, we have to create what we call our split spoke. Taking our scissors, we're going to come back here. This is the one I started on, under this piece here. This is my starting spoke. I'm going to split it in half. Come up here, and I'm cutting it in half. Work it down to just where we started our weaving. Then we're going to treat this now as two separate spokes. Pull it tight. It got kind of loose. Watch your spacing in here. We don't want to lose our spacing. Going to weave over and under. Now I'm going the opposite way of where I just started. Come back here and tighten this up if you need it tightened. Come up here to your corner. Undo your little foot. Weave around it, put that crimp in. Weave another time, holding it with your fingers and your thumb. Come back here, put that foot back in. We have to leave that foot in for about about 7 rows. 7 or 8 rows. Kind of straighten it up. Keep your palm down here when you're weaving. Undo your corner. Go around your corner. We still have to put that little crimp in. We're going to have to do that probably for another row. Move some of these out of the way, give myself more room to work here. Put another crimp. Go under, come back, put your foot up, keep your palm. I know this is a lot to remember. Keep your palm down there too. Put my crimp and keep on going. This little basket, I like to tease my students because I tell them it talks to you. And it does in a way, because it tells you when it's ready to go up, when it's ready to be picked up. And it'll start telling me that at about my 7th or 8th row. Put your corner back on. Make sure you're overemphasizing that corner. Starting our 3rd row now. You won't need quite the crimp in there that you needed before. And keep on weaving. Don't forget to put your palm in there. We'll try to weave a little faster here so we can get this done and go on to the next step. Pack in your weavers. Make sure they're packed in tight. This pattern, I've also taken the pattern and adjusted it somewhat and used 1/2 inch flat and 1/4 inch flat and made a little smaller basket with it. Put on the handle that we used with our friendship basket last time and created this little guy here. Same basket, just a little variance in the pattern. And I should tell you too that the Cathead basket gets its name from its little feet, because when it's turned upside down, it sort of looks like the little ears on a cat and like a cat's head. That's where it got its name. The history on baskets, I think, is interesting sometimes too. Come back in, put your foot in. You have to keep those feet in. Have to keep your palm of your hand down. And to weave around here. Anytime you have a basket pattern, it can be made in a different size. Just kind of think about it, what size weavers and what size spokes you're going to use with it, and kind of adjust the pattern if you're going to need more spokes than what you call for, if you're going to need less spokes. And you can change a lot of patterns that way. And use your imagination, get really creative with basket weaving. Or if you have old patterns that's laying around Grandma's house, if she's had one for a long time, you can copy that pattern too. I've ran out of a weaver, so I need to come in and get a new weaver. Remember, you have to end on top. Always find your right side. We're working on the outside of the basket. Come in here and snip this off. I could weave a little bit longer, but because I'm at a corner, I want to clip that off and end sooner so I don't have to turn the corner adding a weaver. Make sure you hide this under here. And we're going to keep on weaving, and this little guy's starting to talk to me now, telling me he's getting ready to be picked up. I'm at the point now where I can leave my clothespins off. I'm on my 5th row. And to work around, about the 5th row, 6th row, you can start leaving your clothespins off. Make sure you pack in the rows good and tight. Keep working on that. Keep working on your spokes. Make sure they're staying straight and you're working on it. It's getting harder for me to turn these corners now and to work on it. So he's almost ready to pick up. I think I can do probably one more row. Shaker community has contributed a lot of basket styles for us. Not only the Shaker Cathead basket, but the Shaker cheese basket is one. Now, can you see how this reed right here is starting to turn up on me? Can we get a shot of that? Yeah, it's starting to turn up. He's telling me, okay, I'm ready to be picked up. You've gone far enough this way. I'm back to my split spoke here, so we're going to pick this guy up. And we're going to start weaving him next to our belly here. It's going to bring down the sides here, and I'm going to work the sides down here, and we're going to start shaping our sides in here. Keep in mind, we can always go back and tighten, but we can't go back and loosen. Rest him up here on the table. I have a gap that's forming in here. So what I need to do is use my clothespins, go back to the row I just put in. See this big gap I'm getting in here? And tighten that up. Use my clothespins to hold it there. Work it around. Try to work it out. Use clothespins if you need to hold it in. And back to where I started. Let me straighten this out here. Okay. Now I'm going to continue weaving. Use those extra fingers, those clothespins, if you need them. Now we're going to continue weaving up this. We want to weave up until it's about 2 inches from the top. We need about 2 inches to work on our cut. As we work, we're going to make sure that our spokes are nice and straight up and down, so stop every once in a while. Straighten them out. Make sure they're straight up and down. If you happen to lose your feet when you're, that sounds funny, I know, but if you lose your feet when you're working on this basket, simply undo it and start over again. There are times maybe you won't get it quite tight enough and you lose those little feet on the bottom of it. Just take it out and do it again. I'm going to continue weaving around. Okay, I'm where I have almost run out. I need to add a new weaver. Kind of work on it, shape it back up. If some of these are loose, I see some of mine are, I'd want to go back and I'd want to tighten them. But at this point we're going to go and I'm going to show you one that I've already finished. We've talked about, I've woven this up to about 2 inches from my top. We've already talked about how we've cut and trimmed the pieces. If it's on the outside of a weaver, it's going to get a point. If it's on the inside, it's going to get cut off. This one that was cut a little bit long, we'll go in there and trim that down a little bit. Then we're going to go inside the basket, put a fold on here, skip over our first weavers, pick this up and tuck it down into 2, 3, however far you need to go. Skip over my first. That point on the top helps it travel. Work it down in there. Okay, now can you see the little feet on the bottom? How it's, you can see them here, how it's going to make it stand there. We're going to work on our rim, but first we're going to put in our ears. These are called dog ears. They're like the notched handle. They have 2 little notches in here. See the notches there? These are going to slide down in. First we have to put our handle in. On these I have used a notched handle. On this basket I put a stationary notched handle. I've chosen to put a swing handle on this to show you something different. This one is taped together. That's just to help it hold its shape until we're ready to use it. So I'm going to take off the tape here. And we're going to insert our dog ears with the handle. Here is my split spoke here. I'm going to work opposite of my split spoke. So we're going to work up in this area. I'm going to fit my handle into my dog ear. Slide this down. I'm going to skip over the first, actually it's 2 rows of my weavers and slide it down in there. This is where you're going to need your flathead screwdriver. You can see what I'm doing here. We're going to work this handle in. You're going to have to work back and forth from side to side. You're going to have to pick up these weavers and work them down in. If they slide over, we can go back and correct that from the other side in just a second here. I have a second screwdriver here. I think I'll use both of them. Work that down in to where my handle, my rim, will hit these dog ear grooves. Come around here and straighten them out on the other side. Okay, and we're going to go and do the very same thing over here. Make sure the notches are facing into the basket. I'm skipping one of the weavers. There's an empty one in the middle. Take your time, fit it in. Always take your time when you're doing basket weaving because you always want to do a good job. Make a nice, neat basket, something you'd be proud to give away to somebody. I'm working that down in there and working back from side to side. Just a little bit farther here. Now, as you can see, as I put this in, this handle is really misshaping our basket, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, how to straighten that back out. There, we have it inserted, and this is a swing handle. It's going to swing. When we get done, it's going to swing up for us. Okay, this is our 5/8 flat oval. We need to trim off the top of it again, take off some of the oval, about 2 inches back. Okay, we're going to come and put this on the outside first. Use some good, strong clothespins to hold this on. We're getting into bigger baskets now, and that's when you're going to find that you're going to start using your electrician's clamps here. We're going to trim this off to where we started our whittling. Bend it around because the flat side is going to have to face in here. This is my overlap here, so I'm going to put my other overlap opposite it. I'm going to start using these big clamps now because they're going to hold it in better for me. First I need to come back here and trim this, don't I? 2 inches. There we go. Now we'll put this back on. Now you want to catch this. Those notches should rest, the rim should rest on top of the notches. Get some more clamps here. Get that clothespin again. I've got to work around my handle. Need to bring this in here. Sometimes it's hard for me to keep this in camera angle and show you what to do. I have a tendency to want to draw it next to me and work with it. Something that you'll find when you work on baskets too is they'll become very personal to you. You'll really like your baskets. Okay, there we go. Now, give it some little shape here. This is one that we're going to have to do what we call wire our basket. It's nothing permanent, just going to help shape it up, but we're not quite ready for that yet. Okay, I have chosen to use caning on this. I like caning. It adds a nice touch to it. Untangle it here. Again, we're going to put on our point. I know this is kind of repetitious, but it's something you really need to get down is this lashing. We're going to come up from the inside going up, circle around, and leave our tail on the outside. The caning is facing, the right side of the caning is facing the basket at that point. Scooch our rim down if it needs to. We're going to go between our first and second weavers back to the inside. And then the same thing again, and this is going to lock it in. Then we're going to go back, there we go, my little tail on the outside. Bring this across. We're going to cross on the top of each one of our spokes. I'm going in here between the weavers again, work this through here. I'm only going to do a couple of these. I'm going to show you one that I've already finished because I'd like to show you how to do some curls on this basket if we can. Remember to pull this very tight. Okay. If it gets tangled, take a minute, untangle it. But let me show you, we've already done this part of it enough. I'd like to show you one that we're going to double lash. And here I have one that's already started. I'm back to the point where I started. Right here is where I started. I'm going to go back into the hole where I started. Pull this through, make my cross on top of the basket. Up here's my X. I'm going back into that same hole. Pull it tight and work it all the way back. I'm going into every hole that I went before. Notice in here I've crossed in between my dog ears also. You want to put one in there because there's an empty spoke in there. And that's how you double back on that. Straighten it out. If it gets twisted, take a minute, straighten it out, and keep right on going. Keep right on going around. Cross on the top. And then when you come back here, you're going to end it the very same way you started it. But that's how we get our double lashing. I'd like to take a minute and show you how I made these little curls on this basket here. I used caning, and it's real simple to do. I will show you on this basket that's all finished here. Simply start down here, a couple rows up from the bottom, take a wet piece of cane, insert it with the cane side facing the basket up 2 rows. Hide your end under 1 row of weaving. Bring this piece up and around. That will bring your caning to the outside. This is the one we started under. We're going to move over and up 1. So I'm going to go behind this weaver right here, pull this through, and I've created a loop. I'm going to continue in the same manner up the side of the basket, and it's actually going to, these loops are actually spiraling up the basket up the side here. I'll do a couple more for you. This is a fun basket to make. It's a fast basket. You can do it in an afternoon. Probably spend a couple hours on it and you've got yourself a real pretty basket. The stain on this basket is gray. It's just a gray basket stain. I like the basket stains because they're made for baskets. They are oil-based. They keep the basket soft, which baskets should be soft because they really should outlive us. And we just go ahead and work this piece all the way up until we end up a row be, this is our rim. We're going to skip this row, and we'll probably end on this row in here and work that up. Then we'll take another piece, assuming I've already finished that one, and I'm going to, this is where I started this row here. I'm going to come right next door to it. I started here. I'm going to come to my next spoke and stick it up, hide it under here. Oops, wait a minute, I did it wrong. I'm going to come here, come to my next spoke, but start down here, one below it, and continue spiraling up this way. And there you have the curls. That's how you make the curls on these. This is a time-consuming process, so you may want to just plan some time when you do this that you won't be disturbed. If the phone rings, put your reed back to soak. It's best not to let your reed soak overnight because it will turn it gray unless you want to get that effect. The only harm it will do is turn it gray. Make sure you keep these curls all the same size as you work up the basket. And that's how I did this one here. The basket we'll be working on in our next program is called the coil basket. It has a nice coil bottom on it. It has a yarn insert with some colored reed in it. And this is a fun one. This one I've named Stephanie, my Stephanie basket. And it's named after my daughter, Stephanie. Thank you very much for being with us. I've enjoyed it. I hope you have too.